Hello and welcome to our panel discussion on business management. I'm Jacinta Rose and I'm here with Stock Journal columnist and agribusiness consultant Ken Solly and Rural Business Support Farm Business Advisor John Christensen. Welcome.
Thank you.
Ken, can you tell us a little bit about your background to start off?
I started my career as a farm manager and 30 years ago I actually decided to change and become a TAFE lecturer, and then after 15 years of that I had that much demand for my private work. I became a farm agribusiness consultant and I work more in the sheep industry, in journalism and still in education and training, and I mentor and coach a lot of young people.
And John, you have experience in both the farming and accounting side of things?
Yes, Jacinta, I'm a chartered accountant by training. I've worked in accounting for about 18 years and working with Rural Business Support for the last sort of 4 years across South Australia, all the various different commodities. So it's been most enjoyable. It's so much so that I've gone back to study at university. I'm just about to finish a Masters of Science in Agriculture.
So if we can start off with farmers' attitudes to business management, how have they changed, and are people taking a bit more of a fully business-minded approach these days? Ken, if we start with you?
Yeah, I think they are. I reckon one great thing was when the introduction of the GST in 2000, that made people keep a better set of books and they had to do quarterly BAS, and that helped a lot. But I still see a great division between one half of the industry getting better at it and probably the other half just doing very little, and I tend to look at those people as more being lifestyle farmers. And one thing I'd really like to see is that tax accountants turn the farmers' tax returns into management documents, which the current documents are about minimising tax. I want to see them go on and optimise their management decisions going forward.
And John, what changes have you seen?
Well, I think you've seen the increased complexity with farming, and there's more challenges in relation to pricing, costs. You've got climate change, so there's a whole lot of different challenges that are there. More regulation, work health and safety. You have farmers that need to be business people now that probably they hadn't in the past, where they've been sort of just farmers. You've got the, as Ken said, you've got the increasing use of technology through financial and accounting packages, but also farm packages, which has also helped them get the right information. And I agree with Ken about the use of tax information. It needs to be more management information for the farmers. We see that different things are used for have different rules. So income and expenses are charged differently for different purposes. So farmers really need to get an idea of where they are at.
And what does a well-managed business look like? John, I'm guessing it's not just about having the flashiest machinery?
No, look, a well-managed business, you can see it. There are people that know where they are, they know their numbers, they know where they want to go, they've got a business plan. They set themselves a strategic plan, they have goals, they have budgets, which they sort of regular monitor and evaluate. They get the right advice. So in that respect, they have the right team to help them. And as you can see, a well-managed business has the ability to deal with crisis when it comes and to make the right decisions.
And Ken?
You can't always tell a good business by looking over the fence, but there are some telltale signs, and one of that is when there's been sequential spending on the farm. And I mean sequential, not all at once and then a gap, but the tidiness of a farm can actually tell you a little bit, and I usually think if it's a tidy farm, usually that means the farmer's got a tidy mind and therefore they have tidy books, and it's when you actually get hold of an accurate set of books and they actually can tell you what their return on the assets managed is, that really tells me that they're on top of their game usually.
And what about the flip side of that? A poorly managed business, by the sounds of it, it might be some non-sequential spending, either not enough or too much at once?
Yeah, well, usually a poorly managed business is producing probably the same output as what they were 10 years ago. They haven't actually made any gains. We really need to be making sure that every year, when you're a commodity producer, there's only two things you can do, and that's produce more of it more efficiently. And you need to do that because inflation's eating away at you all the time. And if you've got 3% inflation on $400,000 worth of costs, next year the exact same inputs are going to cost you $12,000 more. So you've got to make sure that that is, I reckon, other aspects of poorly managed businesses is poor management of debt, and a lack of real clear goals is one of the real problems that poorly managed businesses have. They're just living from day to day rather than looking forward far enough.
And John, what do you think the signs of a poorly managed business are?
Oh, look, I think it's a lack of organisation, lack of structure, lack of processes. They've focused on the short term, looking at crisis and dealing with crisis all the time. So there's a lack of long-term view. They're focused on production. There's no budgets. There's no very little financial or production information available to make informed decisions.
So what are some of the danger signs that people should be looking out for?
Well, I mean, you can see that a lot of business owners sometimes have a head in the sand approach, the old ostrich syndrome. There's a lot of unopened mail, there's creditor demands, there are a lot of creditors calling, demanding for funds, there's lack of communication with the financiers and other stakeholders, and again, lack of processes. There's poor agronomic and animal husbandry practices, so you can see that the businesses may be in trouble.
And just how much of an impact can making poor decisions or even not making decisions at all, what sort of impact can that have, Ken?
Well, I agree with John. I think one of the big issues with a lot of farms, the two most important things in agriculture, the farmer has no control over, and that's the climate and the prices. So that actually can breed procrastination. And procrastination, a lot of people think, well, that's not making a decision, but I reckon it's still a decision. You've decided to procrastinate in some way. And one of the poorer decisions in agriculture is the lack of a good succession plan, and therefore that puts a lot of pressure on the younger generation because they don't know where they're going and they haven't got the support to create their own futures going forward. And it's sad, but I actually see a lot of what I believe are last generation farmers now, and that's fundamentally due to a lack of succession plan. And that usually leads to disputes and quite often breakup of families.
And farmers can be very quick to seek agronomic or production advice, but are they a bit slower on the financial side of things? And is that something that they should improve on, John?
Oh, definitely. Traditionally it has been all about production and agronomic advice. They often go to their accountant 9 months after the end of the financial year to go and get their tax done, so their financial information is way out of date. So it's very important that they have up-to-date information to allow them to make business decisions.
And Ken?
Yeah, I reckon that farmers need to make sure that they get good independent advice. And look, the farm must be a business right from the first word go, because if you don't treat it as a business, in a few years' time, you just may not have a business there in the thing. And I reckon that it's really important now, and I've only come to this realisation recently, that in farming you should have 20-year goals. Young people have got to have this goal out 20 years so they can put all the steps in place to make sure that they actually get there, so that they've got a purpose and they've got an actual direction in their life rather than just meandering along hoping to lease this block or buy that block. So 20-year goals are pretty important to me.
So really planning for the future rather than just doing what's always been done either by them or by generations past?
Yeah, if they don't plan that far ahead, there's every chance that they won't get to where they need to go.
And when it comes for needing help, where can farmers turn? I guess John, RBS has a lot of ideas about that.
Oh, we certainly do. I mean, there's traditional advice that they go for their accountant, but there are farm business advisors and consultants. There's agronomists, production specialists. They should really look for a team to help them. In case of crisis, there's a rural financial counselling service. There's also debt mediation advice services there. And again, lawyers and financial planners. So there's a lot of advice out there for people. They just need to be willing to ask the question.
And Ken?
as you probably appreciate, I'm pretty big on mentors, and I believe everybody, even people in their 60s and 70s, should have mentors. And a lot of the time when you get to that age, I think you'd flip it the other way and you actually have younger people as your mentors. But, you know, as you work through your farming career, I think you need 2 or 3 people that you really highly respect, and they're very successful farmers, and that when you get into a bit of strife, that they know and appreciate your limitations and your skills and abilities and that, and you can go to them and seek advice from them. But you know, there are a lot of other people, as John indicated, you can go to get advice. You know, you just got to make sure that, you know, I always believe it's the decisions you make in good times that get you through the bad times, and you've got to make sure you're building relationships with good people in good times, so that when you get to bad times, you've got a bit of, you can make a bit of a withdrawal out of the emotional bank account.
So I guess that's something where, you know, I guess support for farmers when it comes to just having a chat with someone, there's no rigid structures there. It is all about laying down some, you know, some foundations that you can then build strong relationships from, just to have a chat with someone.
Yeah,
Definitely.
the thing about a successful farmer is other farmers have total respect and confidence in them, and they know that they understand, because they're experiencing the same pressures and that usually at the same time, so that they can help. And a lot of the time it's just about the change. It's not necessarily doing anything structurally, it's just about changing the attitude towards where you're headed.
You've got to remember that, you know, farming these days is a lonely business. It can be at times where farms are a long way away from each other. You know, the interaction at the local footy club has become less and less as you know, town footy club teams have to merge. So, you know, for that mental health reason, it's very important for farmers to get off farm and talk to other farmers and other people, just get something off their chest.
Yeah.
And looking at, I guess, expenditure within a farming business, it doesn't all have to be on-farm expenditure. How important are off-farm investments, and at what stage should they be considered? Because I imagine there's not always a lot of cash going around to be spent. John, start with you.
Well, I think it's off-farm investments are important. I think it needs to fit in, as Ken said, with a longer-term strategy, and it's a wealth strategy for the farm. And I believe you need to work that out not only within the family but with some advisors, and then from there it also depends on the type of investment and whether the farm can afford it, but also the fact that whether it generates income for the business. You know, is it a tax strategy? You know, in good times, it's farm financial deposits, farm managed deposits. Sorry. But also maybe it's assisting with succession planning. So there's an off-farm asset that can be divided amongst the off-farm children, but it also might be as part of an off-farm savings plan for retirement. So it's very important.
And Ken?
Well, the 3 critical areas in finance or in wealth is you've got to generate enough cash to actually enable yourself to have a profit, and then it's how well you spend those profits. And if you're spending them in depreciating assets all the time, you're probably not going to create a great deal of wealth. So it's how you spend that profit on assets that are going to grow and develop. And hopefully by the time you're around about 40, if you've had these 20-year goals, that you will actually have profits that can actually be directed off farm. And the beauty of that is that when the seasons go against you, you do have an income stream, or you're not totally invested in the farm, because with the climate and prices being out of your control, your actual lot of the time when they're going against you, your self-worth goes out the window. So it's important that off-farm investments can cushion that blow a little bit.
And what value should farmers place on their time, given that most of them don't draw a salary from the business?
Yeah, well, a lot of farmers will get confused because they might only take $3,000 or $4,000 a month in drawings, and they then equate that to their salary, and they're leaving the money in the business to retire debt or spend on capital expenditure. But the thing is, if you go to see your accountant and it's costing you $250 on that side of the desk, you need to be $250 on this side. And then tomorrow you'll go home and you'll be tying on droppers on the fence, and that's $20 an hour stuff. But that's one of the dilemmas of a family farm. You have to work across all those gamuts. But when you grow your business, you can then move to the top, where you're spending all your time utilising those higher level skills, and you bring other people in at the right level underneath. But time is money, and it's one of your most valuable sources, and there's nothing more to tell you that when you've had a delayed harvest and a hailstorm takes out several $100,000 of your crop, and that's just, a lot of the time comes back to good time management. But I would say that farmers probably average about 50 hours a week over 50 weeks of the year, is 2,500 hours, which is about 1.5 times a normal labour unit. And that can breed complacency, because if I go on a farm and try and account for all the hours in a year, a lot of the time I can't find what they're doing with the last 300 or 400 hours, and I'm not accusing them of being lazy. It's just one of the products of running a family farm.
And John, your thoughts on the value of farmers' time?
Look, I mean, that's a difficult question. One way of looking at it is, you know, what would I pay someone else off farm to come on and do my job? So that's one way. Or, you know, if I look at what are the opportunities that I have off farm that I can go and try and earn an income, so that might weigh it all up. The other thing that, you know, whilst farmers, you know, don't take a salary, they're offering a whole lot of non-financial benefits that they do take. You know, they have the house, they have the car, the utilities paid for, their other expenses paid for. But there are also other, I guess, intangible benefits of farming, and that's the feel-good factor, that they really enjoy farming. They're doing something they really love. They're working on, you know, a property that's been in the family for many years. So these intangible things, being their own boss, is very hard to measure. So, but they do need to value their time. That's the important thing. But again, every farm's different. Every farmer needs to put a different value on their time.
Jacinta, I'd say that if every farmer paid themselves what they were really worth and took the cash out of the business, they'd actually make different decisions, and they weren't allowed to put that money back into the business. They'd actually make better decisions, I reckon, going forward.
And have you seen farmers doing that, putting that into practice, and it's been working for them?
Yeah, only really the most profitable ones. You know, a lot of farming businesses only return 1 or 2% return on assets managed, and they just don't have the spare cash to be able to do that. But you know, the people that are doing 5, and look, with lamb and wool and beef where they've been, there should be lots of businesses out there that are doing 8 and 10%, and now's the time to actually put those dollars into some real wealth rather than blow it. It is incredible when farmers have money in their pocket, they'll spend it. When they don't have money in their pocket, they won't spend it. And it's incredible when they've got money in their pocket, they'll actually turn a want into a need very, very rapidly.
And for those people watching at home tonight, what's one simple change that you think people could implement into their business that'll have a massive impact? John, if we start with you.
Look, traditionally farmers have been more focused on production and less on management. So what I believe is better management leads to better decisions, which lead to better outcomes. So therefore what I'm saying is developing a plan and goals, and then monitoring those and evaluating those over the years, I think is the most important thing. And you know, that simply is a simple, low-cost, powerful change that any business can make that will improve their business going forward.
And Ken?
I reckon one of the best things most farmers could do is have an experienced, qualified person to come in and review their business. And even if all they do is do quite a detailed SWOT analysis of the business, and then sit with the farmer and act accordingly to an agreed set of recommendations going forward. And I reckon every business, even the very best businesses, you can still find some more opportunities. We can work more on the weaknesses and the strengths of and the threats within the business.
John, Ken, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a really interesting chat to have, and obviously a topic that we could go on for a lot longer. But thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.